I never imagined that my dishwashing would lead to a chance encounter with a millionaire chef. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The morning was so quiet. Peeking from my kitchen window, the sun shone down, lighting up the dust motes dancing in the air. I stood there, sponge in hand, staring at the mounds of greasy plates. The sink gurgled as I scrubbed away remnants of last night's dinner. A clatter sent my heart racing. I turned, half expecting a rat to scurry by, but it was just the wind slamming the door. It was the same routine every day. Scrub, rinse, repeat. My hands trembled with exhaustion. I hated this job, but it paid the bills. My mind drifted to my sister, Chloe. She believed in magic. That one day, something incredible would happen. I chuckled, wiping a tear from my cheek. Little did she know, I was ready to trade the mundane for a life of excitement. The air felt different that day. Electric. And then, the door swung open. In walked a figure cloaked in mystery, wearing a black chef coat. His eyes sparkled like a million stars. "Do you believe in chance?" he asked, his voice smooth like caramel. I froze. No one talks like this around here. Excitement twisted in my stomach, and I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. He introduced himself as Julian, a chef celebrated in major culinary circles. I felt a rush, like flames igniting in my chest. "I need help," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. My heart raced. What could a millionaire chef need from me? A simple dishwasher. As he spoke about a secret recipe he was perfecting, I barely registered the sounds around meth clinking of utensils, conversations fading into a blur. I felt drawn to him, but also terrified. If he was who he said he was, why was he here, of all places? Was it the food, or was it me? Suddenly, he leaned closer, the scent of garlic and herbs engulfing me. "You have a unique gift, don't you? I can feel it." My breath hitched. A part of me wanted to dismiss him, tell him he was wrong. My life was anything but unique. But what if? What if I was meant for something greater? My heart pounded, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. But before I could muster a reply, the door swung open again. In hustled a woman in a bright red dress, her hair wild and frizzy. "Julian, there you are?" Her voice was a mix of urgency and fury. The door slammed shut, leaving an echo that swallowed the warmth of the moment. I felt the air thicken around me as I watched Julian and the woman, whose intensity overshadowed any glimmer of hope I had clung to. Her name, as I would later learn, was Clara, but in that fleeting moment, all I could focus on was the disconnect in Julian's eyes. They flickered between fear and anger, creating a tempest I couldn't decipher. "Clara," he said, pressing his fingers to his temples as if trying to soothe a sudden headache. "Can't this wait?" I could hardly breathe, caught between their stormy exchange. Her smile was brittle, painted on with a layer of impatience. "We both know this can't wait. You can't run away every time things get tough." Julian. I felt it, that familiar twinge deep in my gut, the haunting specter of helplessness. Here I was, a mere witness to a clash that didn't include me, but shook my very foundation. Was my moment of magic fizzling out, even before it had truly begun? Julian's gaze swept over to me, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though we shared a silent conversation filled with questions and unspoken words. "I'm sorry," he whispered, almost under his breath, like a prayer whispered to the universe. My heart crumpled. But the door of possibility hadn't fully shut, at least not yet. "I can't believe you just expect me to let this go," Clara pressed, stepping closer until there was an almost palpable tension in the room. "You think running off to some dingy little diner will help? This isn't a fairy tale, Julian. You need to face reality." His jaw tightened. "Maybe it's the very reality that's been suffocating me." The very air felt heavy with their unspoken history and the tension of decisions lingering in the air. I didn't want to linger on the periphery of this battle. I wanted to step forward, to say something that would hold his attention just a little longer. But fear wrapped around my voice, suffocating the words before they could escape. I busied my hands with the dishes, the warm water a balm against my trembling fingers. Then, unexpectedly, a crash echoed through the kitchen, a pile of delicate china slipping from a less than stable rack, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Silence followed, enveloping the chaos like a shroud. I stared at the wreckage, my heart racing in sync with my thoughts. It wasn't just any china. It belonged to the diner, a relic from a long-gone era when our small kitchen had buzzed with life and laughter. Threads of nostalgia unwound as I recalled the laughter of my sister, the dreams we wove amidst the clanging of pots and pans. "He'll clean it up," I blurted, breaking the fraught silence. My hands instinctively began scooping up shards, the jagged pieces offering a kind of clarity. Maybe I couldn't intervene in their story, but I could forge a path for myself, even amidst chaos. Julian hesitated, his brow furrowed, then gently knelt beside me, his fingers brushing against mine as he lifted a glimmering piece of porcelain. "Are you okay?" His low voice knotted my stomach, offering concern that seemed genuine, yet distant. I hesitated, searching his eyes. I didn't want it to break. Just like I don't want us, I let the words dangle between us, unfinished but heavy. Suddenly, Clara stepped back, arms crossed defensively. "We both have things we want to preserve, Julian. But sometimes change is inevitable, and we need to face it head-on. Her words. The room felt colder, the warmth between us evaporating. Julian tensed again, his facade of calm cracking as vulnerability skated across his features. My pulse quickened, a warning that something deeper was at play. "What did you mean by that?" he asked, the urgency in his tone drawing me in. Clara swallowed hard, her anger morphing into something else entirely, fear, or perhaps regret. "I just thought you deserved to know before you make any decisions." And just like that, those cryptic words hung there, heavy with unsaid truths, cloaked in shadows. What decision was she speaking of? My heart sank with the realization that I was standing at the edge of something monumental, drowning. Amongst the broken pieces, Julian's eyes locked onto mine, his question unfurling like a flame, illuminating the darkest corners of my uncertainty. What if everything I thought I knew was about to change? Before I could respond, the kitchen door burst open once more, not with the gentleness of fate, but with a fury that sent chills through me. A man stepped inside, imposing and gaunt, with a scowl painted across his chiseled features. His eyes darted from Clara to Julian and then settled on me, igniting an ominous sense of foreboding in my gut. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and menacing. Now, and just like that, my world slipped deeper into uncertainty. The threads of my life, once tangled only in the mundane, were now being woven into a narrative far beyond my comprehension. The air hummed with the weight of secrets, and suddenly, my future seemed not like a fairy tale, but more like a fateful twist of a darkened plot. What had I stumbled into, and what choices lay ahead? The man's presence seemed to drain the laughter and warmth from the room, replacing it with a chill that wrapped around my spine. My heart raced as I tried to decipher the intent behind his sharp gaze, but my mind was too scrambled from the earlier chaos. Who was he? What did he want? Julian stood up, his posture shifting from defeated to defensive, while Clara, eyes narrowing, seemed to swallow whatever bravado she was clinging to. "I told you to stay away," she snapped, her voice brittle. The man took a step forward, ignoring her completely. "I'm not here to argue. You need to hear this, Julian." His earnestness pierced through the tension, but my focus was on Clara. The way her fingers curled into a tight fist against her side suggested that whatever this was, it carried weight, a kind that could topple lives. "What's going on?" I attempted to inject some clarity into the murky depths of confusion surrounding us. I'd been content with a quiet existence before this. Now, it seemed I was the unexpected wild card in a deck already stacked against me. He turned his piercing gaze on me briefly, then back to Julian. "I know this is difficult, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's important." On instinct, I stepped closer to Julian, and he instinctively shifted toward me, the slight movement igniting an electricity that wedged its way between us. Clara's expression soured. "What kind of bad news are we talking about?" The man let out a frustrated breath, rubbing the back of his neck as if preparing for a painful confession. "The kind that will change everything you think you know about Claire and her involvement." Julian's face shifted to a mask of confusion. "What are you talking about, Derek?" I felt ice crawl into my veins, mingling with the fear cascading through me. Clara's eyes narrowed even further, and although I didn't know the complete history between them, the storm overhead only thickened with his words. "Claire isn't who you think she is," Derek continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper, as if he feared the walls had ears. She's been concealing something, and I think it's time you found out before it's too late." The impact of his words ricocheted around the kitchen, my heart echoing each syllable as horror unfurled in the pit of my stomach. What secrets bound Clara to Julian? Why would this man dare tear at the thin veil of our lives? I knew she was hiding something, Julian finally said, his voice a mix of frustration and sorrow. But why now? Why bring this to me now? Because she's running out of time. Derek's voice cut through, igniting a rush of uncertainty inside me. And you deserve the truth before you make decisions that could lead to regret. The air was thick with unspoken revelations, and I was lost in the storm's eye, desperate for footing. My heart began to pound, weighing heavily against the possibility of betrayal. I looked at Julian, searching for something in his eyes to anchor me. "What does this have to do with me?" I whispered, my voice merely a breath caught between the chaos. I wanted to believe I had a place in this tangled web beneath their shadows, but uncertainty clawed at me. Derek's features softened momentarily as he glanced at me, but his determination was unwavering. "You're closer to him than you realize," he stated, pointing an accusatory finger at Julian. "You're part of this, and it's possible you don't even know it yet." Part of what? I felt myself trembling, dread and curiosity battling for dominance within me. I never wanted to be entangled in a misstep of fate. As their eyes locked, the air thickened with unresolved tension. "Claire was part of a deal with someone far more powerful than any of us," Derek revealed, each word like a hammer shattering the fragile hope I held. "And you, her connection to Julian, could put both your lives in jeopardy." Julian's expression darkened. "What deal?" "Involving the diner," Derek replied, an urgency lacing his voice. "She's been trying to protect you while trying to pay off debts she never intended to take after her father's passing." Each revelation felt like an avalanche burying our unsteady lives, a catastrophic turn I never saw coming. Suddenly, the clattering of shattered china seeped back into my mind, a metaphor for how easily everything I had known could be broken, destroyed. What had started as an ordinary day had spiraled into an unraveling tapestry of secrets and betrayal. "Julian," I murmured, fear layering my voice. "What does this mean for us, for all of us?" "I don't know," he whispered, anguish scrunching his brow as he looked between us, fear etched across his features. As Derek prepared to elaborate further, the kitchen door swung open forcefully again, this time flinging in a rush of wind that extinguished the weak overhead light for just a mere flicker, but enough to plunge us into chaos. In the shadows, I caught a glimpse of a silhouette, one that shifted in and out of the soft glow, returning with a fury that clawed at my instincts like a relentless beast. A voice resonated, deeply familiar, yet foreboding. Did someone mention debt? Chilled to my core, I dropped the shard I had been clutching, my breath freezing in my throat as I faced yet another unwelcome twist threatening to unravel our lives once more. The moment the door swung open, revealing the figure shrouded in shadows, a wave of terror washed over me. The aura radiating from this new arrival felt unsettling, a predatory energy that made every hair on my body stand on end. I recognized the voicey, a muffled blend of authority and malice that clawed at the edges of my memory. "Who the hell are you?" Derek snapped, stepping protectively in front of me and Julian, the tension in the room sharpening to a razor's edge. As the figure stepped into the light, my breath caught at the sight of him. It was David, the owner of a competing diner in town. My heart raced not only from surprise, but from the memory of his cold dealings and the unfathomable threat he represented. His reputation preceded him, a man used to getting what he wanted, by any means necessary. Well, isn't this a cozy little gathering?" His tone dripped with mockery, eyes flicking between us like a snake surveying its prey. I couldn't resist the chance to drop by and discuss some unfinished business. "Leave us out of it," Clara cried, her voice rising, steeling herself against the darkness that swirled around him. "We have nothing to say to you. But Clara," he continued, his smile widening in a way that sent shivers down my spine, "this isn't just about you anymore. You left something unfinished, and now it appears we have a larger audience." He gestured toward me and Julian, his smug gaze settling on us. "Your father's little cover-up has come at quite the cost," he said, every word laced with an ominous weight. "And now that he's not around to protect you, it could all come crashing down." Julian reacted instinctively, stepping forward, but Derek's firm hand gripped his shoulder, holding him back. Don't. This isn't your fight, he warned. It's dangerous. Dangerous? David laughed, a sinuous sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. You're all tangled in this mess now. That's why I'm here to help you understand the seriousness of the situation. He looked pointedly at me. Especially you. You have no idea what you're walking into, what do you mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, caught between dread and curiosity. You see, when Claire lost her father, she inherited not just his diner, but also his debts. Debts she thought she could handle on her own without implicating anyone else. And now it seems she's dragged you two right into the crossroads with her. He leaned closer, peering into my eyes as if searching for surrender. Stop it. Julian's growl was filled with force, but it only seemed to ignite more cruel amusement in David. You don't know anything about us. You can't intimidate me. Clara will meet your demands. She's not afraid of you. I think you underestimate the extent of my patience, David replied, his voice a cold whisper threading through the air. But tell me, Julian, how well do you really know Clara? She's keeping secrets, important ones. And if you're not careful, you might find yourself suffering for her choices. The words slammed into me, colliding like a storm against my heart. How much did I really know about Clara? The laughter, the late-night talks, were they all built on foundations of deception? I struggled against the maelstrom of emotions swirling within me, trying to hold on to the threads of trust that were so precariously frayed. None of this has to be difficult, David continued, his tone shifting to one of sly persuasion. Join me, and I can help you both out of this mess. You'll never have to worry about debts or betrayals again. Before I could process the gravity of his offer, Clara stepped forward, her voice rising above the uncertainty that settled in the room. You think I would ever align with you? You're a snake, David, and you've always been. Is that so? His smile faded, and his eyes darkened, revealing the genuine menace lurking beneath the surface. Then I suggest you prepare for the repercussions, Clara. You could lose everything you've worked for, and worse, you might lose him too. He nodded toward Julian, that I felt my heart drop, a fresh surge of fear rattling my resolve. With each heartbeat, I weighed the potential consequences of staying in this volatile situation against the prospect of walking away, but something deeper held me rooted in place. Don't you dare threaten him, I said, surprising even myself with the strength of my voice. I took a step forward, placing myself alongside Julian, linking our fates without fully knowing what that would entail. You don't have the power you think you do. David's gaze shifted, and surprise flickered across his features, but it was quickly replaced by a darkening smirk. Ah, I see. She's feisty, Julian. You have your own little secret weapon here, don't you? He laughed lowly, the sound crawling across my skin. Enough. Just leave us alone. Julian shouted, his voice ringing with raw desperation. The air crackled with a tension that threatened to snap. You'll regret this, Clara. You may think you're safe here, but I can make your life a living hell in a heartbeat. As he spoke those words, something shifted in the room, a palpable sense of impending doom. It became a battle of wills. And yet, through the panic, a single thought rose above the rest. Could any of us truly escape the web of lies we were caught in? David turned to leave, tossing one last menacing glance over his shoulder. He'll be in touch. You can't run from fate. He exited, the door swinging shut with a finality that rang like a death knell through the kitchen. As the silence enveloped us, I turned to Julian and Clara, their eyes meeting mine, each a reflection of fear and uncertainty. The weight of the moment hung over us, a biting reminder of the unresolved truths swirling in the air. What now? I whispered, feeling the enormity of our lives hanging by a thread, fraying with every word spoken. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed violently against the countertop, shattering the silence. She grabbed it, her face paling as she read the message. Oh my God, she gasped, staring at the screen, eyes wide with dread. It's from him. And just like that, our world tilted again, the fragile hope we held on to slipping through our fingers as the new reality began to unfold. The question lingering in the air was no longer what if, but what now? The tension frozen in the air felt as solid as the chilling realization in Clara's eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the message, her breath becoming shallow. I could see Julian's mouth set into a grim line, his brow furrowing in concern while Derek, ever the protector, leaned in closer, his eyes scanning Clara's face for any signs of reassurance. "What does it say?" I asked, my heart hammering in my chest. The whirlwind of emotions coursing through me only intensified with a sense of impending doom. Clara's voice was barely above a whisper, each word laced with dread. "He knows about the debts. He's saying he'll make it worse if I don't meet him." "Meet him?" Derek echoed incredulously. "Are you out of your mind? You can't seriously consider doing that." The protective fervor in his tone was evident, each word filled with urgency. "It's not as simple as that." Clara's voice rose in frustration, her distress palpable. "This isn't just about me anymore. He holds everything over my head, and if I don't go, he won't back down. He can ruin us." Her eyes darted around the room, seeking the strength Shed often managed to conjure, but now seemed fractured. Julian stepped closer to her, the warmth of his presence a stark contrast to her fear. "We'll find another way together. You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure this out." His words wrapped around Clara like a lifeline, and I felt a surge of hope flicker in the dimness. But Clara shook her head, sadness pooling in her eyes. "You don't understand, Julian. I put you both at risk when I try to go it alone. David won't let this go, and if I don't do what he wants, the weight of that if lingered heavily in the air, a cloud of uncertainty that pressed on my chest. What if we went to the police?" I suggested tentatively, though the hesitation in my voice betrayed my lack of conviction. "They could help. Surely this isn't legal." Derek scoffed lightly, causing me to glance at him. "David has likely covered his tracks. He's not in the business of playing by the rules." "Then I need to meet him," Clara declared, her voice a mixture of defiance and despair. A sense of finality gripped the room, and anguish surged through me. I couldn't bear to think of anything happening to her, and the notion of her stepping into David's grasp sent panic clawing at my insides. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed again, this time an incoming call. Clara's fingers quivered as she answered it, her voice growing smaller by the second as she spoke to David directly. The darkness of that conversation seeped into the corners of the room, and I could feel my heart constricting in response. "I can meet you," Clara said finally, her voice steeled with a resolve I struggled to connect with. It frightened me more than anything, knowing she felt she had no other option. "But only if you promise to leave them out of it." I held my breath, the air thick with vulnerability. "You can't trust him, Clara." I burst out, emotions spilling over. "He's dangerous. He'll use you. Stay here, please." But Clara's eyes bore into mine, filled with an understanding that hit me like a ton of bricks. "He already knows too much. I have to do this for us." With that, she ended the call, and the realization settled heavily in the air. She was teetering on a precipice of desperation, and we were powerless to pull her back. Clara, Julian murmured, searching for the words to chain her to safety. "We will figure something out. I promise." His voice cut through the anxiety, simmering hope threading through his confidence. Yet Clara shook her head fiercely. "If I don't go, he could hurt you both. If I walk away now, it puts everything and everyone I care about in danger. I need to face him." The sorrow in her voice was palpable, a heavy shroud lingering over us as if we were all shackled to a launched missile. The swell of emotions threatened to topple me over, but in the heart of the storm, I grasped for the thread of courage within me. "Then let's go together. You shouldn't have to face him alone, Clara." My voice was steady, filled with fierce intent, revealing a determination I didn't know I possessed. "Did you hear what he said?" Clara packed each word with an urgency that pierced through the fog of my resolve. "He'll hurt you, and I won't let that happen." "In that case," I shot back, foolishly daring, "then we'll just face him together. All of us. He can go through the three of us if he wants to try and scare someone. We'll hold each other together, even if it crumbles around us." Clara's gaze softened for a fleeting moment, a glimmer of hope woven into her uncertainty. But even as she opened her mouth to respond, the air shifted. It felt thick with an unshakable realization. The cracks in our lives were widening. The door swung open again with an ominous creak, and the tension thickened unbearably as footsteps echoed from the hallway. My heart plummeted as shadows fell across the threshold, revealing a figure bearing just enough light to cast doubt on everything that had happened. It was David again, but this time he was not alone. Behind him, another figure stepped through the doorway, a woman who looked all too familiar. Someone from Clara's past whom I had never expected to see again. Someone who could unravel everything. What's going on here? She asked, her tone turning sharp, eyes narrowing upon seeing Clara. A rush of uncertainty filled my chest, and the not-so-distant echoes of conflict screamed through the air. Suddenly, it was not just Clara's fate hanging by a fragile thread but the tangled web of secrets and ties we had all tried to protect. The room held its breath, stunned by the precarious intersection of past and present. Each of us caught in the magnetic tension radiating from Clara's face. Fear, anger, and betrayal danced together in her eyes as she took in the sight of a woman who had once been a part of her world. Emma? Clara gasped, the name hanging in the air like a specter. I felt the atmosphere shift, filled now with an unsettling mix of nostalgia and danger. What are you doing here? Clara's voice trembled, reminiscent of a young girl attempting to reclaim a sacred secret long buried. Emma's presence did something I couldn't quite pinpoint. It felt like the stirring of a tempest quietly brewing beneath the surface. Emma shrugged with an air of nonchalance that felt so far removed from everything I had come to know about Clara. David said you were in trouble. Thought I'd come lend a hand. Her gaze landed on Julian and me, a calculating look flickering in her eyes. Looks like you've brought reinforcements. Derek stepped forward, arms crossed tightly, as if to fortify Clara's resolve through sheer intimidation. You have no idea what you're getting involved in, Emma. This is serious. Ignoring Derek, Emma took a few steps forward, directed entirely at Clara. You don't need to do this alone. I can help you. Her voice was deceptively soothing, like a lullaby meant to mask the storm. The growing tension was painted over with a brush of uncertainty. Help? How can you help? Clara's skepticism was evident, but I could see a flicker of interest. The wound was still raw, and here stood a reminder of the life Clara had been trying to escape. Emma smiled, but there was an edge to it I couldn't quite place. You know, I always had connections. David playing puppet master doesn't have to be the end of your story. Let me show you how things work in the real world. Or let me guess, Julian interjected, leaning against the wall as though trying to regain control of the situation. You want to profit from her suffering? Use her like the rest? Emma's eyes flashed with irritation, but there was something deeper under her cool Fasadian understanding, perhaps a sense of regret. This isn't about profit, Julian. This is about survival. We need to protect Clara. Protecting isn't throwing her into the jaws of a wolf. Derek fired back, unable to suppress the rising anger in his tone. You can't seriously think she should trust you. Clara wavered, the inner conflict palpable between her desire for a way out and her instinct to guard herself against old wounds. What exactly do you know about David? She turned to Emma, seeking the truth while recalling the bitterness that had saturated their past. I know he's dangerous and what he wants from you. This is a game, and the rules are rigged in his favor. But I can help turn the tables, Emma replied, her gaze steady, though the air vibrated with unspoken nuances that a moment of silence hung heavily, making space for Clara's decision to loom like a specter at the edge of our gathering. Before she could answer, the tension sliced through the quiet, and I felt a wave of apprehension ricochet through the room. Then, without warning, Clara's voice bolted through the quiet. What do you know about those debts, Emma? What did he want from you? Emma's shoulders stiffened, her composure faltering. I had my own debts to pay off. He had something over me once too. The tone cracked, and vulnerability seeped through her words, revealing a side of her I hadn't recognized. I thought I could escape it, but he won't let you go that easily. The truth hung in the air, wrapping around us with a chilling certainty. There was a small glimmer, a rift of hope in Clara's eyes, as if she caught the scent of allies rising from embers. You understand then? She whispered. It's not just about me. A muted connection bridged the distance between Clara and Emma, resonating with shared pain. Those unforeseen ties hovered just above the surface, however tenuous. They were hopeful. I caught a glimpse of something raw and unyielding in Clara's resolve. But just as that spark ignited, the door swung open again, not letting any light pierce the suffocating shadow already deepening in the room. This time, it was David, his presence suffocating, like a storm converging on a fragile oasis. Isn't it lovely to see old friends reuniting? He said, dripping sarcasm as he surveyed the gathered crowd, his eyes locking wearily on Clara. Did you tell them about our plans? The silence that followed felt suffocating. Clara took a deep breath, summoning all her strength as her heart beat faster, louder against the fabric of uncertainty. I could see her weighing each choice, each word, conscious of the pivot point our lives had reached and the dire consequences lurking glibly ahead. As Clara's eyes met mine, the weight of the moment pressed down with fierce intensity. Everything seemed to hinge on her next words. The tide of our fates hinged on what she would reveal. "David," she finally breathed, her voice steadied with newfound determination. "If you think I'm going to let you take anything from me anymore." That's when the lights flickered ominously, plunging us into an abyss of darkness. A moment later, the sound of shattering glass pierced through the straining silence, and I could feel an involuntary shudder ripple through my bones. And in that heart-stopping instant, all hope wavered like a fragile candle poised before the wind. Clara was suddenly enveloped in chaos, and I understood, as dread wrapped around my heart. The precarious web we had all tried to spin around her was about to unravel in the most unimaginable way. Clara's defiant words faltered as the darkness engulfed us, drawing gasps from those around her. I couldn't see her expression, but I felt the weight of her resolve pressing against the fear that was beginning to swell in all our hearts. The jagged sound of glass further dedicated the chaos. In that moment, the remnants of calm shattered like the fragile illusion of security we'd momentarily nurtured. "What was that?" Julian shouted, his voice straining against the backdrop of confusion. Derek instinctively moved closer to Clara, shielding her as though he were her armor. I stepped back, my mind racing through possibilities, wrapping myself in the suspicion that something invisible yet ferocious was brewing beyond the walls. "Stay close," I whispered to Clara, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the unfolding disorder. The darkness seemed corrosive, as though it had claws that reached out to tear at the frayed edges of our fragile alliance. David's silhouette danced against the flickering light as he directed his ire towards Emma. "What have you done?" he snapped, his voice now an unsettling undertone that twisted through the shadows. "That I haven't done anything," Emma shot back defiantly. "This was your idea all along. Coming here to drive fear into Clara without any thought of what it means for her." Clara strained to see through the dimness, her expression hardening as shadows paraded in front of her. "You think you can intimidate me into submission, David? Those days are over." Just then, another crash echoed from deeper inside the building, a body, perhaps, taking a tumble in the dark. The thud resounded almost like a warning. Seconds felt like hours, split by the visceral anticipation of what was to come. "You think you're brave because you have allies now?" David sneered, ice dripping from each word. "How noble of you to play the martyr." "It isn't strength, Clara, it's a fool's folly." Dread pillaged through me as I fought to gain clarity amidst the encroaching darkness. Clara had shown a flicker of willingness to fight, but within her, I sensed a tempest of emotions swirling, clashing against each other. The battle wasn't merely physical. It was emotional, a fight for freedom and peace, yet tethered to the past that refused to let her go. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and in that hazy illumination, I noticed Emma darting toward the back exit. "There's a way out. Follow me." Without hesitation, I grabbed Clara's hand, suppressing the urge to doubt Emma's intentions, focusing instead on escaping the imminent danger. "Trust us," I urged, looking deep into Clara's eyes, searching for belief amidst the uncertainty. Derek hesitated but ultimately followed, leading the charge as Clara squeezed my hand. A silent agreement threaded in the panic. As we sprinted through the warren of darkness and debris, the adrenaline fueled my resolve. Hope battled against despair. Our shared breaths echoed against the walls as we guided ourselves to safety. I could feel Clara's heartbeat aligning with my own, racing toward the acceleration of a unity we were desperately trying to forge amidst madness. But once we reached the corridor, everything shifted once more. A loud bang resonated, and the sound alarmed the hushed air, freezing our momentary escape. We backed against a wall, sharing a collective breath. Clara's fear was tenacious, surfacing despite the small victories ahead. "What now?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling as her eyes darted left and right. Just when we thought clarity would break through the madness, David's figure stepped into the scant light that held the shadows at bay. "Do you think you can run from me, Clara?" he taunted, hunger pooling in his gaze. My heart sank. "We're not running. We're fighting," I asserted. But in that moment, The resolve behind my words felt thin. It was unclear how long we could sustain our strength against the relentless tide David was capable of summoning. But Clara, picking up on the force of my conviction, took a deep breath. "What do you want from me? You think I'm afraid? You don't know me." A chilling laugh escaped from David, twisting the air into something sinister. "You have every reason to be afraid. And soon, you will understand exactly what I'm capable of." He stepped closer, veiling the darkness between us. And then he paused, as if savoring the anticipation of the moment. "I have one last play to make, Clara. One that involves your friends too." In an instant, like the click of a switch, the world collapsed beneath us. The knowledge that I, too, was ensnared in David's web ricocheted through me like shrapnel. Uncertainty pooled heavily in the air, and I could sense the impending storm gathering for a revelation that held the power both to betray and to unite. But before any of us could respond, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, a frantic notification flashing across the screen. Clara and I exchanged a glance, the urgency palpable. "Stay here. I'll check it," I said, a small spark of guarded hope igniting in my chest. But as I reached to pull out the device, Clara's eyes widened. "Don't too late." I pressed the screen, and the message that illuminated our impending reality sent chills surging through me. "I know where you are." The realization fractured the moment, bringing with it an insidious dread that thrived in the shadows. I looked back up at Clara, whose face had gone pale. A new monstrous threat loomed, a horror I couldn't quite pinpoint, and the stakes were dangerously spiraling higher. Then I heard its footsteps approaching. The room was shrinking, choices were dwindling, and the walls around us began to close in tighter than before. A heavy silence enveloped us as the footsteps echoed from deeper within the building, each one laced with a menacing purpose. There was an unmistakable tension, the kind that comes before a storm, where every instinct screamed at me to flee, but something oddly exhilarating tethered me in place. Clara's fingers gripped mine, her breathing rapid, matching the erratic pulse of my heart. When Clara's gaze locked onto mine, I felt a jolt of vulnerability travel between us. "What was that message?" she demanded, urgency dripping from her voice. "I can't let fear dictate my actions." "It could be a distraction," I urged, though deep down, foreboding claws gripped my gut. "We've dealt with David before. We can't let him force us to divide. Together we stand a chance." But as the footsteps drew closer, doubt seeped into my resolve. Every second was thick with uncertainty, the air electric with foreboding. Just then, a figure emerged from the murky shadows, a woman, clad in dark clothing, her face partially obscured by the dim light. I squinted, trying to decipher her intentions. Every nerve in me awakened. "Stay back," I shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Clara, my body tensing as the new adversary drew closer. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," the woman replied, her voice surprisingly calm amid the chaos. "I'm not here for a fight. At least, not yet." Clara shifted beside me, her brows furrowing. "Who are you?" "Just a friend of a friend," the woman said coolly, her lips curving into a barely there smile. "But right now, I'm here to make a deal. Clara, I can help you." Clara's eyes darted between us, confusion marring her features. "Help me? Why would you want to help me?" "Because," the woman shrugged, her tone suggesting a well-rehearsed script, "there's a storm brewing, and every party needs to know which side they're on. Besides, David has plans you wouldn't believe." A sense of foreboding settled over me like a wet blanket. "What kind of plans?" I inquired, my heart racing. "Ones that involve not just you, but your friends too," she whispered, her voice dipping lower, layering a new level of urgency in the dimness. "There's far more at stake here than you realize." Before I could respond, Clara interjected, "Why are you telling me this? What's your angle?" "Perhaps I think you're worth the trouble," she answered with a shrug, but I sensed there were multiple layers to her intentions. The shadows danced around her, and I felt as if we were standing on the precipice of something monumental. One wrong choice, one emotional misstep, and we could easily fall. The footsteps grew louder now, closing the gap, creating an urgency I could nearly taste. "We don't have much time," the woman murmured, her eyes flickering to where the darkness pressed against us. "David will not take kindly to my presence here. What do you propose?" I quelled apprehension with resolve, unwilling to let our chance slip away. "A temporary alliance," He'll get you and your friends out of here. But you must trust me, she asserted, her gaze turning steely. And more importantly, Clara, you must face the truth about David. He's not just a vengeful man. He's dangerous in ways you cannot fathom. I watched as Clara wrestled with her fears and the overwhelming desire to escape whatever lay beyond the corridor. Just then, a loud crash exploded against the far end of the hall, sending a jolt through the air. Clara jumped, and instinctively, she took a step closer to me. Trust her, I whispered, as much for Clara's sake as my own. We can't let fear bind us here. With a hesitant nod, Clara signaled her willingness to follow the woman's lead, though uncertainty clung to her like a shadow. The darkness that once felt suffocating now teetered between a realm of confusion and an unknown promise of clarity. As we turned to follow the mysterious woman, another crash erupted, blinding us momentarily. The floor trembled slightly beneath our feet, and a sliver of light pierced through the darkness. It revealed a craggy staircase leading upward. Just as we started to ascend, another notification buzzed violently on my phone, halting my resolve. I checked the screen again, and my stomach dropped. I know your friends are with you. They won't be safe for long. Go, I shouted, pushing Clara and Derek ahead as I hung back, a visceral instinct to protect gripping me intensely. The walls shook again, but amidst the chaos, I struggled to forge a path through the uncertain future stretching before us. What's going on? Clara turned back, confusion in her eyes laced with fear. Just go. He'll find you, I called, the truth dawning on me with sluggish realization. The enemy was closing in not just on us, but on everything we cherished. With one last glance, I saw Clara's trust flicker like a candle before plunging into darkness, taking her friends with her. As I felt the impending, encroaching dread of David's wrath and the shadow of the unknown woman looming close, I knew reticence couldn't win today. The fear stirred within was an unsettling reminder of the storm we'd unwittingly ignited. Struggling against the panic threatening to spiral me into a dark place, a gust of clarity cut through. It wasn't just my battle. It was theirs too, woven together in a tapestry of fates less predictable than I had imagined. What awaited beyond the edges of darkness was still unwritten, teetering precariously between salvation and destruction. The staircase was steep and narrow, the smell of damp wood and dust mingling in the air as Clara, Derek, and the woman surged ahead into the unknown. Each footfall hammered a rhythm of anticipation and dread into my mind, their light flickering like a heartbeat against the encroaching shadows. I stood back for a moment, absorbing the reality of our situation. My heart was pounding, not just from fear but from the desperate urgency pushing me to make a decision. The lights overhead flickered again, and I set a course in my mind, my eyes trained on the final glimpse of Clara's silhouette. I had promised her I wouldn't let fear hold us back, yet here I was, caught in the gravity of the unknown. But I was also anchored by something else, the bond we shared, galvanizing my resolve. I couldn't lose sight of what truly mattered. Her safety. I tightened my grip on my phone, the notification still glaring back at me ominously. An idea flickered. I had to divert David's attention from Clara and the others. If I could draw him away, they might have a chance to escape. It was a gamble, one that could cost everything, but I knew the stakes had risen immeasurably. Taking a deep breath that did little to calm the storm brewing inside, I pushed forward, retracing my steps deeper into the building. There was no plan, just an instinct to find and confront David, to create some space for Clara. As I moved, the air thickened with the sense of inevitability, the weight of unseen eyes trailing my every step. Rounding a corner, I pushed open a rusted door, revealing an old, neglected office space cluttered with overturned chairs and remnants of once vibrant paperwork. A sudden thought struck me. David wouldn't just be lurking in the shadows. He would be strategizing, laying his trap. I needed to outsmart him. The phone vibrated again, jarring me from my thoughts. Another chilling message. You're running out of time. Just as I scrolled and considered my next move, harsh laughter echoed down the hall, a sound that resonated with cruel familiarity. It was him. My heart thundered louder as I edged closer to the source, curiosity mingling with fear. Could it be that he hadn't realized Clara was gone? Was he so caught up in his own game that he missed a crucial move? Peeking through the cracked doorway, I was met with the sight of David, a figure woven from the shadows, flanked by two imposing silhouettes. It was a scene plucked from a nightmare, one highlighted by his smirk as he toyed with the plight of someone I didn't recognize, a man, bound and gagged, with wide, pleading eyes reflecting a desperate call for help. "Look where we are now," David said theatrically, pacing with the flair of a villain in a twisted fairy tale. "All your little threads are coming undone, one by one. How easy it is to unearth the secrets of those you hold dear." With every word that spilled from his lips, repulsion surged through me. He was orchestrating this chaos, his dark mind weaving a tapestry of torment in which we were all deeply entangled. My body tense, I wrestled with the impulse to rush in and save the man, but I also understood that blindly charging in would put Clara in danger, and that was the last thing I could afford. Just then, the man shifted, and a flash of recognition lit my thoughts. He was someone from Clara's life, someone she used to confide in. A friend from a time when hope still danced in her eyes, before everything had turned surreal. David must have sensed my connection because a predatory grin spread across his face. "Thought you might like the show," he taunted, eyes narrowing in on me. "You've come a long way, but you're running out of moves." It was as if the floor beneath me was crumbling, anxiety clawing at my insides. The stakes had elevated, and now there was another life hanging in the balance. Would I risk my own exposure for the sake of someone who may not have a deep connection to our plight, but whose suffering was intrinsically linked to Clara's? My instincts screamed at me to act, to intervene. I recalled the warmth of Clara's hand in mine, the strength of our shared moments. Perhaps this was what our fight was about, more than just survival. It transcended into connections, friendships between once unlikely companions who found themselves tangled in David's web. But as I took a hesitant step back, considering my options, there was a sudden rush of footsteps behind me, the sound pulling me from my resolve. I turned sharply, my heart sinking as I met the gaze of the mysterious woman who had first led Clara away. In that moment, a silent connection sparked between us, one of understanding and urgency. "Quick," she urged, urgency bubbling in her voice. "We must go now." And as she turned to lead me away, a horrified glance over her shoulder revealed David had already taken notice. A glint of malice lit his eyes, and in that instant, I knew it wasn't just about Clara anymore. I had a choice to make, and the window for collecting scattered pieces was rapidly vanishing. "Note your connections well, for if they unravel, so shall you." David's voice echoed after us like a taunt, shredding through my resolve. Without another thought, I followed the woman, the gaping chasm of uncertainty yawning before me. But as we dashed down another corridor, my heart sank deeper still, realizing that beyond the fragile safety of escaping David lay the grim truth. The moment Clara had grasped my hand so tightly, I had unknowingly woven her fate to mine, a bond that had never been so perilous. And as the thundering footsteps drew near once more, I couldn't shake the sense that there was far more at play than we had imagined, a network of entanglements reaching back towards us. The weight of the decisions felt heavier, and the resolution was now elusive, a distant aspiration as each corner turn seemed to lead us deeper into David's labyrinth. The darkness before us felt like a storm, fierce and unrelenting, and as I faltered behind the woman, a chilling realization clawed at my mind, a truth too potent to ignore. Clara's fate was intertwined with the ones we were bypassing, and with it came a staggering possibility. To save one was to risk losing another. It was a frantic escape from David's web. Each step we took reverberated with panic and uncertainty. Our breaths came in shallow gasps as I clutched Clara's hand tighter as we dashed through the winding corridors. I could feel the weight of her fear brushing against my skin. Whatever awaited us beyond the shadows, we had allowed it to take root in our lives, and as I locked eyes with her, I felt the unshakable bond we had forged, a bond that was at once a sanctuary and a ticking time bomb. Suddenly, the distant echo of footsteps and the specter of David loomed closer behind us. "Go," I urged Clara, pushing her forward while the woman whose name I still didn't know guided us, her expression unwavering and fierce. I wished I could inject some certainty into this chaos, but each twist and turn felt like we were running deeper into darkness. "Here," the woman cried as we emerged into an empty kitchen, sunlight streaming in through the windows, momentarily blinding us. The scent of garlic and bread lingered, remnants of another life, one untouched by the maelstrom. I took in the scene, heart racing as the warmth enveloped Meth's very essence of comfort amid turmoil. But even as I exhaled relief, I realized there was no time for respite. A loud crash just behind us jolted my senses. We have to keep moving. He's right behind us. The woman glanced back, urgency contorting her features. If we can just make it to the back exit, we might stand a chance. She led us through the kitchen, my heart pounding in synchrony with the footsteps advancing towards us. I could feel the universe slipping out of balance, chaos trying to swallow us whole, and panic tightened its grip around my throat. Clara, listen to me. I seized her shoulders, forcing her to meet my gaze. No matter what happens next, I need you to trust me. We'll find a way out of this. I believed it. Even though my heart quaked with uncertainty that moment, Clara's resolve flickered, and something shifted in her eyes. She began, but the moment was shattered by the thundering sound of footsteps barreling through the doorway behind us. With a fierce grip, we surged ahead, pushing through the double doors leading to the alley behind the diner. As we rushed into the light, the sun momentarily blinded me, but the smell of fresh air was intoxicating. It felt like freedom, but the fear of being pursued yanked me back into reality. To go, the woman commanded, shoving us forward. There's a car waiting at the end of the block. In a burst of adrenaline, we ran. My heart raced as Clara bolted beside me, the rhythm of our feet pounding against the pavement synchronized like a heartbeat of hope amid despair. Behind us, the shadows lunged, and I could hear David's menacing laughter trailing like a specter. The world around us faded, the chaos retreating momentarily until I turned to see Clara stumble, caught by a shifting stone in the pavement. No, I yelled, reaching to catch her, but she tumbled to the ground. Before I could reach her, the woman turned back without hesitation and threw herself between Clara and the encroaching darkness. You need to get out of here. Now, she shouted defiantly, her voice ringing with defiance as she stood her ground, ready to face David's wrath. What are you doing? Clara gasped from the ground, fear simmering in her voice. Trust me, he'll find you. Just go. The woman's determination sent a shock through my chest. It was a selfless act, the kind that carved the essence of bravery and love in a world so dark, yet radiant in its potential. No, I can't leave you, Clara cried, her voice breaking with desperation. But the woman pressed forward, her eyes fierce. You can't save me. This isn't just about me anymore, this is about your freedom. Time seemed to slow as uncertainty crashed in like waves. Would this moment stretch into an eternity or fade like the flicker of a candle? Clara, let's go, I pleaded, reaching for her hand as shadows intertwined behind us. David's voice echoed, vengeful and intoxicating. You think you can escape? It's just beginning. With each word, I felt the weight of our fight spilling onto Clara, binding us tighter than we had been before. The flicker of hope surged between us, knitting our intentions into a tapestry wrapped around the promise of survival. With hesitation, Clara finally grasped my hand, her determination surging to meet mine, and we ran, racing toward that flicker of light beckoning us ahead. The alley seemed endless, a vast chasm of blurred memories trailing behind as the thrill of escape ignited our lungs. But just as we reached the street, something within me snapped. I stopped. The weight of all those tied to this decision swelled up in my throat. Fear and courage weaved together, a pulsating reminder that freedom had a price, one that included not just my life, but the lives of those I cared for. Wait. I turned, my breath ragged as I saw the woman still standing firm against the darkness brushing around the entry. What's your name? It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. If we make it out, I want to know who I fight for. When she hesitated, the light flickered in her eyes. Something caught fire inside of her as she took a step back into the shadows. It's Sophia. Then we do this for you too, Sophia. Don't let go of hope. With that, the rattle of impending chaos echoed through the alley once more as a choice cast itself onto the horizon. I grasped Clara and pulled her along, feeling the bond of our hearts meld as we sprinted away. As the sirens began to wail, reaching a crescendo, the streets became our canvas, a race against not only the darkness, but against a life that could steal my very soul or ignite my heart. And so much more awaits, I whispered as the final threads of the past unraveled behind us. forging a new path into the unknown. We turned the corner, the uncertain day looming with the raw promise of something more, a future undreamed of, beckoning to be birthed by our fierce resolve. Together, we burst forth into a world so beautifully vast and frighteningly uncertain, embracing the opportunity to rebuild. The sunlight hit us like an embrace, wrapping us in warmth and possibility. As we dashed down the streets, hearts racing, each other by our side, I grasped the truth. The true magic of life lies not just in the escape from despair, but in the fearless embrace of love, friendship, and the companionship of souls united in purpose and resilience. Clara, I whispered, adrenaline pulsing through my veins, whatever lies ahead, we'll face it together. She caught my gaze, the storm in her eyes replaced with a flicker of belief as she squeezed my hand tighter. Together. And in that moment, under the sun's embrace, we took the first steps into a new narrative, a tapestry woven of countless chances yet to be discovered, amidst the endless possibilities of love. And as I turned to face the road ahead, I felt, for the first time in ages, a sense of belonging swell within like a melody. Love had anchored me through the storm, and I would never doubt its power again. The world stretched wide before us, the promise of a new chapter beckoning under an infinite sky.